Welcome, everybody. I'm Terry Cowenhoven. I'm the clinic coordinator at the Down Syndrome Clinic at Children's Wisconsin. And if you are not a DSMIG member, this is a part of a series of webinars we do to support clinics across the world and country. Make their Down syndrome clinics the best Down syndrome clinics they can be. And if you're not a member, you should join. So DSMIG, if you don't know who we are a group of health professionals committed to promoting optimum health care and wellness of individuals with Down syndrome across the lifespan. And DSMIG does this through educating professionals on the latest research and comprehensive care, facilitating network among health professionals caring for individuals with Down syndrome, supporting the development of Down syndrome clinics, and identifying and disseminating best practices of care. So that's who we are. Just a reminder, during the webinar, your mic is automatically turned off. This is being recorded. If you are struggling with your view, you can select speaker view at the top of your right corner on your Zoom window to adjust that. If you are struggling with anything technical during this webinar, you can privately message Emily Perkins. She's kind of handling all of that today. And we will be showing the speakers have pre-recorded videos. So we will be showing the videos and then holding questions till the end. Our speakers today are Erin Kelly, who is from the Down Syndrome Center of Western Pennsylvania. And what we thought we would do today is kind of highlight some of the more unique ways that people are getting funding for clinics. Erin will talk about how their parent group partially supports the clinic. Lauren Wang from the University of Cincinnati Health Primary Care will talk a little bit about county and public funding. And then Janice Nodvin from the Adult Disability Medical Healthcare will talk about private funding.
Hi, my name is Erin Kelly. I am the Pediatric Program Coordinator of the Down Syndrome Center of Western PA, located in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. And I'm going to talk about collaborating with our local parent group. So our Down Syndrome Center was opened in 1989. Our local parent group raised money and they approached Children's Hospital of Pittsburgh in the hopes of opening a medical clinic to care for their family members with Down syndrome. When the Down Syndrome Center opened, it was much smaller than it is now. It was only open on Tuesday mornings. Patients of all ages were seen at the Children's Hospital, and there was only one physician and one coordinator that were part of the staff. Since that time, the Down Syndrome Center of Western PA has grown quite a bit. We have 3 pediatricians, we have 2 adult physicians, a behavioral psychologist, we have our own nurse, we have a researcher, a dietitian, a self-advocate, a pediatric coordinator, as well as an adult coordinator. Now we travel to 7 different sites to see our pediatric patients, and our adult patients are seen at 2 different hospitals in Pittsburgh. So as the Down Syndrome Center grew and changed, so did the Down Syndrome Association of Pittsburgh. When the Down Syndrome Center first opened, the fundraising goals for the Down Syndrome Association were largely just to support the Down Syndrome Center. That was their focus, and that's where the majority of their money went. But as I said, just as the Down Syndrome Center has grown, the Down Syndrome Association has grown and expanded as well. And they've expanded and added a lot of programming. They have a lot of goals of their own in mind that they want to fund. And so their goals with their funding and their focus has changed from where it was initially. The funding for the Down Syndrome Center continues to be fully from philanthropy. The Down Syndrome Association is still one of our largest donors. They provide almost 25% of our operating expenses each year. So they are still very committed to supporting our Down Syndrome Center. To get the rest of the funding that's needed to operate our center, we look for alternate funding sources. We work very closely with the foundation at Children's Hospital, and we are constantly trying to find new grants and new partners that also have the same goals that we do in wanting to support and provide care for families and individuals with Down syndrome. Not only is this important because we need to find that funding, but also it's important for that parent group to see that we are not fully dependent on them for all of our funding. It's very important for them to see that we are working to try to get funding from different sources. In addition to working with those trusts and grants, we also try to educate our patient families about the importance of philanthropy and about what our Down Syndrome Center would look like without philanthropy, so that they are knowledgeable and understand that this is something that only can happen with the benefit of donor support. Our relationship with the local parent group really is a partnership. We are caring for the same families and the same patients. So we are constantly working together to better serve those individuals. We help the Down Syndrome Association by sharing information about their organization with all of our patients. We share their emails, we share their Facebook posts. We distribute information at visits so that families can get on their email list. We refer patients to their program that they have for expectant families and families of newborns. They have a parent mentor program, so we will send referrals to them to make that connection. We also try to support and attend any of the events that the Down Syndrome Association puts on. We try to have members of our team there representing us, showing that we value what they do and to continue to support that partnership. It's important for the families to see what the funding that we receive does. Every year, our Down Syndrome Center team reports to the board of directors of the Down Syndrome Association. We let them know any developments or changes that have happened with the center. We keep them updated about how many patients we serve, how many new babies we've had, how many prenatal appointments we've had, so that they can see what their funding has helped accomplish. We also provide information to the Down syndrome community at large, either with an open letter from our medical director, or we've done a town hall format where we let the entire community see what services the Down Syndrome Center provides and what the funding that we receive has helped to accomplish. There are a lot of considerations in the relationship with the local parent group. It's really important that they feel like they're a partner of the center, that we're all working towards a common goal, and that they're very important, a very important part of our mission. Our relationship is beneficial to both of us. They send families and patients to us and vice versa. So they show their support for our center. We show our support for their organization, and we work very closely and very well together. It's important that, as I said, it's important that they see the impact of their support, that they don't just write a check and then not know what happens with it, that we show them what we're able to accomplish with that funding. It's important that we show them that we're not depending on them for everything that we want to do. If we want to add new services to our center, that we're looking for different funding sources for those goals. Continuing to educate families about the need for philanthropy, and encouraging the support of an endowment, both with funding from the Down Syndrome Center and funding that we receive from other sources. An endowment is really important at looking at the future health of our Down Syndrome Center. No relationship comes without challenges. One thing that sometimes the parent group has trouble understanding why our Down Syndrome Center wouldn't be fully funded by the health system that we are part of. So that is a question that continues to be raised by them when we give them our proposal for funding. They have questions about why we don't get more funding from the health system. We have to keep in mind that they have goals that they want to achieve with the money that they're raising beyond just supporting the Down Syndrome Center. So we have to be mindful of asking them for support and funding while still allowing them to grow and to provide those new services and new events and new opportunities that they want to do as well. With any parent group and a board of directors, those people change constantly. Sometimes the board members are family members who are very familiar with the Down Syndrome Center. They're parents that bring their children to the center. They know the importance of having the Down Syndrome Center there, and they know the value. But some of the board members are simply community members who have an interest in providing services and support for individuals with Down syndrome, and they may not be familiar with the Down Syndrome Center. So we're constantly trying to educate and give them information about what it is that we provide that is necessary for our families. Because the Down Syndrome Center of Western PA has been here since 1989, it's very easy for families to just take for granted that it will always be there in the form that they've come to know it. And so we need to continue to educate our families about the importance of philanthropy and keeping the Down Syndrome Center providing services the way we are now, and not take for granted that it will just always be the way it is now. The relationship we have with our local parent group is successful because we both have the same goals. We both want to serve the families and the individuals with Down syndrome in our area, so we can overcome any of the obstacles that come up throughout the years, and focus on just helping each other achieve that common goal.
Hello, my name is Lauren Wong, and I am so excited to be here to talk to your group about something that is near and dear to all of our hearts, which is how in the world do we fund the great work we're doing at our clinics? So I'm going to share a little bit about how we've been able to access some funding from local sources and hope it's helpful to you. So my name is Lauren Wong, like I said, and I'm the creator and medical director of the Timothy Freeman Center for Intellectual and Developmental Disabilities, which is in Cincinnati, Ohio. And I'm also a professor in the Department of Family and Community Medicine. I'm going to share a little bit about the center because I think it sets the stage for the level of funding that we're trying to obtain. Our mission is to provide specialized, coordinated, patient-centered healthcare for adults with intellectual and developmental disabilities. So we are broader than just Down syndrome, but we do see a lot of adults with Down syndrome. And we also see adults with autism, spina bifida, cerebral palsy, Williams syndrome, and a lot of other rarer syndromes. And another part of our mission is to train and empower future physicians to care for this population so that maybe someday there won't need to be specialized centers, that every place will know how to take care of adults with Down syndrome and other types of intellectual and developmental disabilities. This is me. I was in the first slide too. You're not seeing me. So that's what I look like, taking care of one of our patients. But I want to speak a little bit to the services that we have. Our backbone is primary care. We're open Monday through Friday, 8 to 5, doing primary care. But we have expanded based on really assessing what are the needs of our community to incorporate more behavioral health and psychiatry, physical medicine and rehab. We also have behavior support, which is funded through our local county board, which I'm going to talk about. We have a dietitian. We just hired a community navigator, which is also somebody that was funded by the county boards. So I will talk about those roles in a little bit more detail. This is our team. That's me in the top left. We have Dr. Emily Johnson, who just joined us from Colorado Springs. We have nurse practitioner Stephen Jansen. So the three on the top are primary care doctors. Then we have Dr. Keaton, Dr. Rivendell, and Dr. Clark is our physical medicine and rehab physician. So this is really, this is the money slide where we just want it to rain, right? We want to make it rain. How do we find the money? We would love if our healthcare systems just gave us everything. But we know that some of the services that we want, like behavior support and community navigator, might not be billable. So that's hard to make that argument to the health system. So we have to think creatively, who does this benefit and how can we reach out to them to see if they would be interested in funding some of these positions? So we've really pursued some local funding, and I'm going to focus on the funding that we've received from the county board, but there are other avenues that you could certainly go to also. So one, you could go to just your city. We, unfortunately, in Cincinnati, can't access city dollars for community projects because there's an exclusion for healthcare facilities. So that's been a setback for us. And again, no matter where you are in the country, you're going to have different rules and a different kind of local atmosphere. So this is basically just to get your mind thinking, what are potential funding sources that you may not have thought about or you may not have explored yet? For us, the local county board of developmental disabilities has been really generous and a great partner in the work that we're doing. So there's a couple different ways that you could go about accessing this funding. So I want to first say, the state budget, when the state budget is created, where whatever state you're in, there's probably a capital budget, and then there's an operating budget. And depending what your needs are, if you have capital needs or operating, you might want to be included in one or the other. And if you're part of a health system, you might have a lobbying team or government relations team that can really help you strategize your ask and make sure that you're talking to the right champions in the House and Senate. If you're not that big of an organization, and there's still no reason why you can't contact your local representatives and really start developing relationships and let them know about you and let them know what your needs are. And have your community reach out to them too, to just really make your ask. So that's one way you can target state budget. You could target the Department of Developmental Disabilities. They're making their budget every year, and they're getting funding from the state. So if you can get into the Department of Developmental Disabilities budget, you could get access state dollars, but by being in their budget. So, you don't have to make the pitch at the state level, but you could access the funding from the developmental disabilities budget. So that might seem a little bit more doable if you can form a relationship with the director of the Department of Developmental Disabilities or someone that he or she appoints to kind of be an intermediary and do some of the more community relationship building. So just another avenue. If you don't get in their budget, funding is going to flow from them to the local county boards. And that's really where we've had success. I think mostly because it's the place, the superintendent of our local county board really sees firsthand the work that we're doing and the value of the work that we're doing and how it benefits the community that she is serving through the county board. So because of that, we've formed such a strong partnership, and that's been one of our best avenues as a funding source. Another thing that I was thinking you could do is go through the local health department. We have not tried to access those funds, but I think that's reasonable. Again, you could try to be in the Department of Health budget, which would receive state funding, and then you could pool the funding that way. Or go to your local health department. Now, I know they're always kind of struggling on a tight budget themselves, so I'm not sure if they would have a lot to give, but you can make your pitch, shoot your shot. This is where we've had the most luck is with the county boards. So 2 different roles that we had funded. The first is that I'll speak about is through the Southwest Ohio Council of Governments. It's a group of superintendents from 6 of the regional county boards, and they they get together, their own entity, and our superintendent, I had formed a relationship with her, and she invited me to present our vision when we were first getting started as a center. And I presented to the SWOCOG group and spoke about our vision to have ultimately a community navigator that would be a connector and a bridge between the healthcare system and all of the community resources that service providers at the county know all about, but we in the health system don't. And people come to us all the time they need transportation, they need a waiver, they want to pursue employment opportunities. How can we address some of those social determinants of health that come up at visits better? How can we be a connector to all the good work that's already being done through the county boards and through some of our community partners? So after about a year of discussion back and forth about what that would look like and what the ask would be, SWOCOG did fund a full-time community navigator, which we just are in the process of hiring. So that's very exciting. And our goal is that we'll be able to measure some outcomes and show how worthwhile this is, and hopefully renew this year after year. Another partnership that's been great is with our local Hamilton County Developmental Disability Services, our local board. We had started meeting with them before we were officially a center. We would have monthly meetings between primary care, psychiatry, and the behavior supports team at the county. And after meeting for about 6 months, it became very clear that we serve some really high-risk patients, and there's a lot of communication that needs to happen between our system and their system. Hence, that's the community navigator. But there's also a lot of behavior supports that are needed in the doctor's visits themselves and out in the community. So but having a behavior support person in office would help us be able to minimize sedation that we were otherwise having to do to get blood work done or to get EKGs. And it would also be a liaison and connector to behavior supports in the community. So this gift has been truly transformative. We have 20 hours a week now funded through the county of a behavior support specialist from the county that comes and spends time in our office and has educated the staff about how to de-escalate behaviors and in crisis prevention and in using sensory items and using different communication strategies. And, we'll just hands on the ground when we have a patient that's agitated or maybe getting aggressive or anxious, the behavior supports person can go spend time with that patient right then and there. And our goal is that we're really educating our staff, but that this role is going to transform the system at large. We have a partnership with anesthesia where now our behavior support person is spending time with anesthesia to develop social stories to make those visits, surgical experiences less traumatic and less frightening to patients. So again, we hope to grow this role, but it wouldn't have been possible without the county board seeing the value in it. And then lastly, community partnerships. I think other people are speaking to this, but just our local Down Syndrome Association of Greater Cincinnati has been a wonderful partner. So look for people who are doing the similar work that you're doing who may want to collaborate. I put my contact information here. Feel free to reach out to me. Our email address for the center and also our website for the center if you want to learn more about it. But I'm also always happy to talk about how we've kind of worked things out in Cincinnati and help you on your journey, and you can help me on mine, and we can support each other. Thank you, and best of luck in all the good work that you're doing.
Good evening. My name is Janice Nadvin, and I am the Executive Director of the Adult Disability Medical Healthcare, ADMH. ADMH is located in Marietta, Georgia, which is a suburb of Atlanta, Georgia. We are unique in that we are a nonprofit healthcare facility providing both primary and specialty care in one location. We partner with a private family practice center so that we have the use of medical assistants and the medical doctors, along with our ADMH team of social workers, behavior specialists, and family support individuals. We run 2 interdisciplinary clinics per month, and we focus mainly on teens and adults with disabilities. Many of them have Down syndrome, but many of them also have other intellectual and developmental disabilities, including autism, cerebral palsy, seizure disorders, G-tube feedings, and rare genetic abnormalities. ADMH was founded realizing the difficulties that this population has as they transition from pediatric to adult services. This is so difficult in finding the adult services when pediatric hospitals, pediatricians, pediatric therapists can no longer serve that individual. And because that individual is the age of majority, quite often the major insurance is Medicaid, and not all practices will accept Medicaid. We do. So, as I said, this is a very rare and needed program, and we obtain requests for services from all over the Southeast. We are organized as a nonprofit organization guided by a board of directors and developed through our ADMH medical team. We provide primary care, resources to all of the different other access to services that are needed, and provide the needed supports to parents and our participants. So these are the kinds of services that insurance does not always pay for, will not pay for. And so we know that we need to obtain, and have always known that we're going to need to obtain additional funding. So how do we get that funding? We have several programs and events during the year that focus on our patient care and our fundraising events. We also have individual donations, and it is important, very important, for us to get grants from a variety of sources. When we started, we did our grant applications ourselves, but as we grew, we knew that we needed some help. And at this time, we utilize a grant writer service. We have an MOU, that's a memorandum of understanding, so that we know exactly what our guidelines and their guidelines are and the deliverables that must be met. In 2022, we were able to obtain over $85,000 in grant applications, and most of those went directly to services to help our patient. It's much harder in 2023 to do this type of grant writing. And there are more and more people and organizations that are vying for the same grants. It's about 1 in 10 that applications that is successful. And knowing that is helpful in planning for the types of things. Our grant writer works very closely with our ADMH team that consists of myself as executive director, our medical director, and our treasurer, who review all of the applications and make sure that the information is up to date and reflects the vision and mission of ADMH. Barriers. It's an ongoing process, and it is something that we look at because it is an expensive proposition. The grant writer gets a retainer, and that particular company is requested to do 2 to 3 grants in an appropriate format per month, and assists us in some of the smaller grants that we may be able to do individually. They also do help us market and get our name out into the community. It's important that the grant writer and the grant writer's staff meets with us on a regular basis and is kept abroad and up to date of any changes that are made. We feel very comfortable with our grant writer and will continue to utilize this service as long as it is profitable for both of us. I thank you very much.
Thank you so much, speakers. That was interesting and awesome. We can open it up for questions if people have specific questions. Lauren is not on the call.
I have a question.
But Erin's here. Jennifer?
Yes, I believe Erin presented the first session, right? Great. Hi, Erin. I'm a fundraiser for UCSF Benioff Children's Hospitals. And I was wondering, how do you explain to prospective donors why the healthcare system doesn't fully fund the Down syndrome clinic? Just curious to see how you deal with that.
I mean, it's a hard thing to explain because you know, they think because they have insurance coverage that everything is being reimbursed to the hospital system, so it should all be covered. So we have to explain, you know, our visits would only be 15 minutes long. We wouldn't have coordinators. We wouldn't have a researcher. All the parts of the center that are not reimbursable would just not exist. But it is something that it does constantly come up, and you know, families definitely see being connected to a large health system as that we have access to a huge bucket of money whenever we want it for whatever we want, and that's just not the case.
So basically, you just say that all of these other extra services that are actually very important aren't built.
Yes. Yeah. Right. And that they're not being reimbursed by insurance, so that they're not things that we would have anymore.
Okay. All right. That's the same thing we say.
Okay.
Thank you.
If you think of something else, let me know.
I actually do have a follow-up question. Hi, I'm Noemi and I'm on Jennifer's team. You mentioned that fine balance between leveraging the support of the community organization while also respecting that they're fundraising for all kinds of other stuff. And what it sounds like for Pittsburgh is that it started out with the parents saying, hey, please give us a clinic. So of course there's vested interest in continuing to fundraise for that, but also how do you balance what I have found to be very different budgets? Like the budget that we present for what we need is stratospheric compared to what their organization otherwise needs for other programming. And so, you know, how much of their annual fundraising would go towards supporting the clinical work as opposed to many other efforts. How do you sell it, and how do you justify it, and how do you balance it?
Yeah, I mean, it's trying to remind them that we're only here because of their efforts to begin with. I think the further we are removed from the beginning of the clinic, when that was the focus and that was their goal, it gets harder to keep that in their mind. But when we put together the ask every year, you know, we're aware that they want to keep, at least not increase what they're giving us, because they have goals. I mean, they have really made a lot of changes in the last few years and increased programming, and they've been offering a lot of different things to the community. And so we're trying to be respectful to that when we're putting together the ask, and not not send a message to them that we're not hearing them. No.
It's interesting because I lost myself.
You're there. Oh.
I'm a pediatrician, but now I work for a Down Syndrome Association, and it's interesting to hear that they have enough money to fund you, because we're having our fundraising. It's been a really hard couple years, and I couldn't imagine that we would have enough money to fund a clinic.
So they give us almost 25% of our operating expenses every year, which is a huge chunk.
Do you mind if I ask around how much that is?
I'm gonna, off the top of my head, and I'm not remembering, I think their gift to us for last year was around 120,000.
That's a lot. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Yeah. I mean, we have a very active parent group. They are, have a lot of fundraising efforts. They work to get grants from community members. The Buddy Walk, when they promote the Buddy Walk, they're promoting it with the partnership with the Down Syndrome Center. So, that's probably the largest funding source for what they give to us.
Mm-hmm. Thanks.
Mary Stevens, I just had a comment. I also want to say thanks as a member of the committee and a member of the board. These were wonderful presentations tonight. I remember when Lauren was getting started and worked with us in our mentorship program, and it's just, I so appreciate all three of you. Will say I helped start a Down syndrome clinic in Delaware, and our parent group was 100% behind us. Pittsburgh is a huge metropolitan area. I don't know the numbers, but like Delaware is a small state, so there may not be a big difference. But for folks who are on the call or who may listen to this, I mean, there's incremental things that a Down syndrome program may offer. Our program still provides free books, which is huge to our families. They're a ready resource. When we got started, they funded my trip to my first DSMIG conference. So I think the support you guys get in Pittsburgh is incredible. But I think for folks nationally who may not be able to get that level of support, there's still really critical things that partnership can offer. And I wouldn't forget about those smaller asks that really can help a program grow and shine.
That's a really good point, Mary. I have a question, Erin, just related to, so you showed a picture of some posters that you put up in the clinic space.
Those were Facebook posts. Yeah.
Oh, those were Facebook posts. Okay. All right. I would be curious. We have a foundation and a children's foundation, and I would be curious about the relationship you have, you know, related to private funding with that foundation.
With the Children's Hospital Foundation?
Yeah. You mentioned that.
Yes. Well, they, you know, there's another fund that is our largest donor that works through the foundation to give us a grant every year. And then they're looking always at different funding sources, other, you know, donors they know have an interest in supporting clinics like ours, and that, you know, they make that connection, and then they do the asks for us.
Okay. So if you have somebody in your clinic, so I misinterpreted. I thought those were posters that you put up in the clinic. And so if a parent saw that, what's the relationship, you know, how do you integrate the foundation with individual donors? I guess that was my question.
Yeah, no, just the Facebook posts were the little, just explaining what the clinic would look like without philanthropy. And that we try to, you know, from the beginning of meeting families, we tell them, you know, how our clinic started, the importance of parent support and philanthropy and keeping what we have. And so, you know, we do get those individual donations throughout the year.
Erin, what percent of your patient population would you estimate lives significantly below the federal poverty level?
I mean, I would be completely taking a stab in the dark.
Okay.
I mean, we definitely serve patients that would be in that category.
Yeah, I think that's one of the difficulties of my clinic, is that I would estimate it to be like 60%. So
Okay.
hard to ask for money. I was wondering, you know, since you're closely connected with a local parent organization that has been able to leverage a lot of support, I feel like the Down syndrome community has been really successful in going to the NIH and saying, listen, if we really want meaningful research, we need the NIH to set aside significant amount of funding for Down syndrome related research, hence they include funding streams, you know, increasing significantly. Does anybody on this call know of similar efforts to get the kind of work that we all do, you know, funded with grants that are, you know, federal in the same way? I do feel like part of the issue is that, as the third presenter was mentioning, we're all applying for the same grant. We're all applying for the same funding streams. A lot of the funding streams are not even earmarked for clinical work. They're earmarked for community endeavors. So do you know of any such advocacy efforts that we can all get behind? And if not you, anybody else on this call?
That's a great question, Naomi. And Lauren, initially when we were planning on the speakers, she was going to talk about some federal money that they were applying for, and I don't think they got it. So she focused on county funding instead, which is still public funding. But yeah, I don't know how to answer that question, but Janice does.
Yes, and I didn't even know if I would be able to make this call. I am not in Atlanta, Georgia. I am in Virginia, where I am participating in my only grandson's graduation. So I'm delighted that I was able to squeeze this in. The one thing I wanted to make sure that we all are aware of, we are all very committed to healthcare for our patients. And it is so difficult in any type of partnership or grants or funding that we get from outside sources to do the grants management. People want to know exactly how their money is being spent and want to know at the end of that cycle, even if it is being refunded every year, exactly what the success is. So a lot of the process is not only patient care, not only trying to get vying for funding or networking or grants in any of the other ways that we do so, but it's administering and monitoring exactly how that money is spent.
So thank you for that, Janice, and thank you for joining us. So to answer Naomi's question, any thoughts, Janice, on advocacy at the national level for public funding?
I think it's important for us, especially if it is a federal grant, that there are multiple partners that are together for that particular grant. If it is one small group, and we may be very fortunate to be part of a larger association, but for federal grants, it is showing a multifaceted partnership. And absolutely, it is correct that clinical care is not where so many of the foundations and grantors are seeking. They're seeking for programs, for an immediate resource and an immediate feedback from their funding sources.
So daily operations are tough to fund, yeah.
Very tough.
Yeah, it has to be a special project or something new or research, yeah. Any other questions? Dana from NDSS. I'm not aware of advocacy at the national level specifically for Down syndrome clinics, but I'll pass along these thoughts to our advocacy team. There you go. That's one way you can help clinics, Dana. And it was interesting that two of the clinics that presented tonight were, broader and not specifically Down syndrome, but serving broader populations of people with disabilities. Okay, well, thank you for your thoughts tonight, speakers. Great job. This will be recorded and it'll be available on the website shortly in the next month or so. If you enjoyed this program, feel free to share with colleagues and trainees. There's more. All of the clinic support committee webinars are archived on the DSMIG website in case you missed past ones. And if you're not a member, consider joining. Emily posted or consider a donation. There you go. Since we're talking about funding. Thank you, everybody, for being here tonight.